Hi there guys. David Gilmour said this is his best album he's made since Dark Side of the Moon. Is it? Let's find out. Hi there guys, welcome to my channel and welcome if this is your first time. If it is your first time, don't forget to hit like and subscribe below. Give it a thumbs up, it does make the channel grow and it does help. Right, Luck and Strange. I've listened to this while I was on holiday. I streamed it from Spotify. Didn't really put much stock in it then because obviously streaming is not the best way to hear something new like that. When I got home from holiday, this was waiting for me. This is the new album on bottle green vinyl, which I bought direct from his website, davidgilmour.com. I've had a chance to listen to it now. I've made some notes. Let's see how good this album is. And the album opens with a song called Black Cat. It's a very short, I don't say how long it is, about a minute long instrumental. It's pleasant enough. It's very Floydy, the sort of thing that you would find opening a Pink Floyd album. So it's not really out of place for Gilmour to do this sort of thing. It does sound very Gilmour and very Floydy. So not much more to say about this, but it's a good intro to the album. The next track that we come along to is Luck and Strange, the title track of the album. I like this track quite a lot. I really like the guitar riff that opens it. This guitar riff was originally conceived while Gilmour was still working with Richard Wright during the famous Barn Jam sessions. In fact, I think on the possibly on the CD, definitely on the Spotify stream, there is a Barn Jam, I think, of this track, which I heard while I was on holiday. To me, this song is very reminiscent of the sound that he was achieving on his 1978 album, David Gilmour. So in that respect, this is quite a good play on his past, and it does sort of deliver, I think, what you expect to hear from David Gilmour. The next track is The Piper's Call. This is blatantly about Syd Barrett and his tenure as Pink Floyd's frontman. It features Steve Gadd on drums. Romany Gilmour is also on this on backing vocals. She is all over this album on backing vocals. She sings lead on one track, we'll come to that later. And she also plays harp on a couple of tracks as well. This is a good track. I really like The Piper's Call. It's got a good guitar solo at the end, again very Floydy. It's in keeping with what you'd expect from a Gilmour album, really. But what is a Gilmour album? We'll come to that at the end. The next track is a single, Spark. I've got my notes here. It's an okay song. It's a classic sounding solo at the end, but this just rolls, to me this track just rolls along aimlessly. It doesn't really go anywhere. It's probably, to me, the weakest track on the album. It's okay. The next track is Vita Brevis, or Vita Brevis. It's another instrumental. This features David Gilmour and his daughter Romany on harp. This is a small interlude before we get into the next track. It's pleasant enough. It's a nice break in the proceedings before we get to the last track on side one, which is Between 2 Points. This is a cover version. It was originally recorded by the Montgolfier brothers. This features Romany Gilmour on lead vocals. She's got a very nice voice. I really like her voice. It's a good song. It's got very simple harp work in it, but it does work in the track. It flows lovely. It's a nice solo. It sounds to me, he's just recently bought a Gibson 335 guitar. He's never owned one before. Well, back in 1968, he was photographed with a white 335. But to my knowledge, he's not had one since then. It sounds to me as if the solo on this track was recorded on that 335. It definitely sounds like a guitar with humbuckers on it. We then get to the penultimate track, Dark and Velvet Nights. I've got a problem with this song because it's got a really strong start with feedback and a nice sort of building intro that doesn't really deliver or go anywhere once the track starts properly. It just chugs along. It's trying to be angry, but it's not really achieving that. I think the intro to the song sort of leads you down a false garden path and you end up on this little chugging type thing. Again, it's got Steve Gadd on drums, brilliant drummer, don't get me wrong, but it just doesn't really deliver. It's low on my list of good tracks on this album. It does suffer from Polly Sampson syndrome. I've spoke about that in the past before. I'm not a massive fan of her lyric writing, as you probably know. Although I will say that her lyric writing on this album, and I've read the lyrics while I was listening to the album earlier, and her lyric writing is improving. It is getting better. But when you're singing and writing, when you're singing about, for example, The Piper's Call, when you're singing about Syd Barrett, it's very difficult to, for me, I think it's very difficult for someone that didn't know him to actually write about him. It's not personal enough, I don't think. But anyway, back to Dark and Velvet Nights. Yeah, it just chugs along and it suffers from Polly Sampson's mediocre lyrics, in my opinion. It's an okay song. You know, it's an okay song. But then we get on to the next track. Sorry, Dark and Velvet Nights wasn't the penultimate track. Sings is the penultimate track because I've got to go over a page for the last track. Sings. It's pleasant enough. It doesn't set the world alight. It's an okay song. It's a slow, brooding song, really. Again, it's not top drawer David Gilmour. It's okay. Then we get on to the final song, Scattered. Now, this is where there's some interesting musical inflections, I'd like to say. The song opens with a heartbeat, which obviously harkens back to Dark Side of the Moon. Now, whether Gilmour consciously did that, I think he did. I think he consciously did that because the next thing is the piano comes in, and the piano's been put through a Leslie speaker. So it sounds like the piano on Echoes. It's obviously, I think this is he probably did that as a tribute to his old bandmate Rick Wright. That's what my belief is. I think this song is probably a tribute to Richard Wright, which is why it's got some of those old Floydy sounds in it. We get to the solo at the end. It's in 3 parts, the solo. The solo starts off on acoustic, which is lovely acoustic guitar solo. That goes on for a minute or so, a couple of minutes. We then go into the first half of the electric guitar solo, which to me sounds, it was done on his black Strat, not the famous black Strat which he sold. He's now playing one of his signature models, and quite frankly it still sounds like David Gilmour, so it doesn't really matter what guitar you put in his hands, it sounds like him. The first half of the electric guitar solo sounds to me as if it's been played on the neck pickup, because it's quite dark, but it's classic David Gilmour, very Floydy in its delivery. Then midway through that solo, it goes up a gear, and you can hear him switch it to the bridge pickup, and the guitar solo soars, takes off then, and then you've got like a couple of 3 minutes of solo like that, and then it dies down, and then he sings a chorus once more, and the song ends. Scattered is a really good song, and I think it's a good closer to the album. But what do I think of the album as a whole? Is it the best album he's done since Dark Side of the Moon? Of course it isn't. Of course it's not. It's not nowhere near as good as Wish You Were Here. It's nowhere near as good as Animals. It's nowhere near as good as The Wall. And it's not even anywhere as good as The Final Cut. Why is this? I'll tell you why. Because those albums had a better lyricist. Whether you love him or hate him, Roger Waters wrote some fantastic lyrics, right? Polly Sampson is not a lyricist, she's a novelist. I've heard her books are good, but her lyrics have always been very, very hit and miss to me. And I'm you know, this album, she is getting progressively better, you can hear that. But is it better than Dark Side of the Moon? No way, not in a million years. It's his best album since the 1978 David Gilmour album, or dare I say it, it's his best album since About Face. You know, I like About Face. It's blatantly 80s and it sounds like it, but it's still got a better vibe, I think, than Luck and Strange. Certainly, I think About Face is better than Rattle That Lock and On an Island. You know, but that's subject for another video, I think. But no, it's not his best album since Dark Side of the Moon. I think he was on drugs when he said that. But anyway, that's my thoughts on Luck and Strange. What would I give it out of 10? I'd give it 8.5 to 9 out of 10, something like that. The yardstick being 78's David Gilmour is a 10. You know, it's going to be 8.5 to 9, below that. It's his next best album, I think. It's got some really good tracks on it. I think he's still got a fairly good voice even at his age. You can tell his voice is not as smooth as it used to be, but you know, he's aging gracefully, which is more than I can say for the likes of Paul McCartney. You know, who can barely talk, let alone sing at the moment. So yeah, that's my opinion on Luck and Strange. If you liked my videos, give them a thumbs up, hit like and subscribe below, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye bye.